Greetings everyone. Now this is a primer on how to utilize Indian roads as safely as you possibly can. I have ridden a bicycle in earnest for the last several years now and have not had an incident to write home about in an extremely long time. I've debated a couple of times on whether I should upload footage of cycle or motorcycle or car first. Cycle does indeed require the most focus among the three because it is mentally as well as physically demanding. There's concepts of conservation, thinking far ahead, and if possible, utilizing alternative routes because knowing the city is everything. An important disclaimer has to be made here that safety isn't an absolute phenomenon and accidents can and will happen. Just make sure you dress for the slide and not for the ride. For the bicycle, that means at the very least a helmet and a pair of gloves. Remember that while motoring rules don't strictly apply to you as you are considered a pedestrian by law, it doesn't stop you from needing to be considerate towards everyone else who shares the roads with you. People are not perfect and may have a lapse in judgment, you included. I'm not going to say I'm perfect either. There are some judgment errors I make in the following video. What's important here isn't the mistake but the solution. Always stay well within your skill limits. You never know when you may need to extend. As a side note, you will see me do this often. That's just me checking on the camera because it does tend to heat up when the wind speeds are insufficient. I believe this ride encompasses most of the situations I'd like to talk about or you'd find yourself in on public roads. There will be more commentary as we go on. Now for a first challenge. Crossing the main road and taking a ride. Ensure you yield and that the other person has seen you. The indicator of botching this up is that people honk at you. Leave your ego at home. It is perfectly acceptable that everybody is getting ahead of you. Be conservative. You will soon see why. Changing lane positions has to be done nicely, slowly, and gently. Remember, any abrupt motion might startle someone else. Furthermore, I fully recognize that some of you may disagree with some of the contents of this video, and that is perfectly okay. Just know that a lot of the nuances don't come through fully because this is a chest-mounted camera. For example, some people believe in rearview mirrors. I honestly think they are great while starting out, but they do have blind spots, and because of which you rely more on head checks on a cycle. This won't come through because this is a chest-mounted camera. Recognize here, you are going to get boxed in. Think ahead and power through. Now, aren't you glad you were conservative till now? Please note, backing off is an option, but whatever you do, be predictable. If you botch either idea, you will get honked at. And do not let mistakes get to you. You will get better as you practice. Up next is a sweeping curve. Be as far to the edge as the situation permits. For all you know, someone is playing GTA in real life just around the corner. Very, very important disclaimer here. I soon do speeds that my current safety gear simply isn't capable of handling. It doesn't look very fast because of just how high up on the cycle you sit. Plus, I'm standing here. You need to know your braking distances like they are second nature. I cannot understress just how important this is, but do not try to ride exactly this way. Again, this is a chest-mounted camera. My head checks are not captured, and I am always riding well under my skill limit, 60% or lesser, here on public roads. This gives me a comfortable margin to adapt just in case things don't go exactly according to plan. I've picked up a lot of skill from riding various types of two-wheelers under various types of disciplines. Having better, safer riders than me teach me, give me feedback over a period of time, incorporating it slowly, practicing braking, counter steering, swerving, and so much more. And believe me, I am still learning. There's still so much to learn. I'm only sharing proof of concept that it is entirely possible to ride a cycle on Indian roads while having as much fun as you can and being safe. By the way, in case you were wondering, that creaking sound's coming from my crankset. I've been meaning to work on this cycle for some time. I really should get to it. And now a demonstration on what makes the bicycle so potent as a machine for crowded urban environments. First, the turning radius. No other machine can quite do this. Second is lightness and terrain versatility, which gives you access to the footpath. Now, please do not attempt this on any other machine that isn't a bicycle, and even on a bicycle. As much as you may arguably consider it a pedestrian, please give a real pedestrian due consideration and respect. Remember, footpaths in India can be hazardous if you don't know what you're doing, and a lot of fun if you do. I implore you to stick to your skill limits here. And when you do see pedestrians, do not alarm them. Do not ring a bell. Get around them with due consideration and respect. And when the density does rise, please get off and walk with them. Ordinarily, here's where I would get ahead by hustling through. But up ahead is a flyover. And there is no point competing with a motorized vehicle uphill. Now cycles do not belong on the right lane or on the right lane position. You need to plan to get back to the left, but do it gently and predictably. On narrow roads like these, try to be as little of an inconvenience as possible. Now this person does admittedly honk at me, but there was no vitriol involved. It was a gentle indicator that I'm overtaking. No need to be alarmed. We move on. Now in the case of a merger here, do not find yourself in the extreme left because you give yourself no time to react. Pedestrians, people coming the wrong way, vehicles oriented sideways, very common. Always scan for threats. Now for the customary idiot on a cell phone. Make sure you slow down and be careful getting around them. Remember, they are distracted and don't have the right reflexes. What I usually do is pick a different path from his. That doesn't always bear fruit, so your next option is to wait with patience. And when you see an opening that can put distance between you, take it. Again, cycles do not belong on this lane. Have a plan to get back as soon as you can. Also, I began slowing down as soon as I realized the Swift wasn't going to yield. I must mention here that it's not me they're honking at, but it can be if I linger in this position for too long. Get back to the left as soon as you can. By the way, wearing a motocross jersey was honestly quite the revelation for cycling within the city. It's not the aerodynamics that matter, you don't do those speeds. And compression doesn't matter all that much either. But the porous surfaces and the extremely light fabric are exactly what you need on a hot and sunny day in a tropical country, bang in the middle of summer. And no, I'm not just saying this now because I'm commenting. Those are the exact thoughts I went through my mind at that moment. I am walking you through my thought process at the time. What I do next comes from years of practice of observing and learning the paths that vehicles take, mapping the vehicles around you, planning a path through all of them, etc. Do not attempt this unless you are 100% sure. And as I keep mentioning, you need to be sure that the other person has noticed you and will be yielding to you. Getting honked at is the immediate indicator of botching this up. Staying extreme left at the sweeping corner works, but if you see a mounted person on a vehicle, expect him to take off any moment. So give yourself some room. And always be ready to swerve. Nothing to see here, we move on. Now, getting ahead of the Zola was definitely an option, but I'm taking a left here. And motorized vehicles are so much faster in terms of recovery of momentum. Expect 1 out of 3 reactions from pedestrian: quickening pace, reducing pace, and stopping. Aim behind them. Plus, chances are, the vehicles behind you will also follow suit, keeping our pedestrian safer. It's summer. Keep yourself hydrated. I did stop you for a quick refreshment. Now, here's a very instructional moment. Being around a large vehicle, being sandwiched between 2 large vehicles. Ideally, I wouldn't do this, but I had to demonstrate that even if you find yourself in this situation, not all is lost. Generally, I'd have taken that, but remember, big vehicle equals big blind spots. And get as far to the left as you can, because if the vehicle turns, the rear comes around too. Now for a very controversial section of this video. My take on riding opposite to traffic. Ideally, don't do it. I wouldn't have done this. But this is mainly to demonstrate how if you really have to, it can be done. With some caveats of course. And remember, this is added risk. I also have a similar take on jumping the signal. Remember, the other people have the right of way. Be as considerate and as responsible with your decisions as you can. Keep your pace nice and moderate and yourself as easy to predict as possible. Being on the footpath is definitely safer. Walking on the footpath is probably the safest. But alas, you need to deal with specimens like these. I cannot stress this enough. You may not be breaking the rules, but you do not have the right of way. Be humble. In hindsight, maybe I should have gone left, but his tire was initially facing that direction, and it's much harder to avoid collision at this speed. Also, what causes a crash is hesitation, more often than not. Sometimes you need to pick a path that you know will work and stick to it with conviction. Yes, I am saying this again like a broken record, but you do not have the right of way. And you have to be the one to be extra considerate and the one to yield. Again, I do not advocate riding like this, but should you do it? Which is better, left or right? Honestly, I'd say that depends. Left would mean the traffic that crosses you would do it slower. Right would mean the driver has better understanding of where you are and is more likely to see you. you recognize that it was me they were honking at on multiple occasions earlier. Again, I do not advocate for this unless it absolutely has to be done. Now, going straight was an option to reduce travel by a couple more minutes, but it is a one way, and my appetite for that has more than been satiated. I was just trying to illustrate a point earlier, and honestly, I'd prefer trails and footpaths over opposing traffic. Even with the broken footpaths, honestly, this is very conflicting because, on one hand, you have the elderly and the specially able honestly struggling within the city over bad footpaths. On the other, it is actually a fascinating obstacle course that teaches you a lot about quick directional changes, carrying momentum, and getting comfortable with having the wheels slide under you. If you're wondering why I'm lingering on the right lane, just know that head checks, again, do not get registered on a chest map. always understand your braking distances and slow down nice and smooth. Now, getting ahead is definitely an option, but what do you suppose would happen if the route ahead is completely empty? Always remember, think ahead. What a sweet lady. Sometimes it's the little things in life that make you happy, such as motorists who yield to bicyclists. Always remember to show your gratitude. And this is usually the moment that many of you are always waiting for, a full send downhill. Please be cautious, you can really hurt someone, including yourself, if you don't know what you're doing. Learn how your brakes, tires, suspensions, chassis, etc. individually behave, and always be well within your skill ceiling in public. Always remember, two machines will behave differently even if they are the same model from the same manufacturer but from the same batch. Yeah, that was quite the slope. Okay, so we're almost at the end of our ride. It's been roughly 40 minutes from Kasturinagar to Malleshwaram. This ride was meant to be as instructive as possible. I hope you learned something. I have a lot to learn myself. Remember to think ahead, be considerate, stay safe, wear gear, and have fun. In that exact order. And no, I do not intend to do another opposite direction run. Recognize that the vehicles here are stationary, and as soon as I realize that they are about to move, I am off the pavement. And as soon as the people density begins to rise, there's only one thing one can do: get off and walk. I end the video here because the camera does tend to heat up when there isn't enough wind. I'll be uploading content of other vehicles too. Do hit subscribe if you enjoyed this. See you next time.